is Lance, and this is Amped About Aimpad. In today's episode, I thought you might be interested in what I've been up to, and so a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Indianapolis Mechanical Keyboard Meetup, and I decided to attend there in Indianapolis. It's near where I live, so it was a convenient opportunity to be there. But for those that don't know what what a mechanical keyboard meetup is it's basically a place where people gather together and talk about mechanical keyboards and kind of geek out over what mechanical keyboards can do and feel like and things like that. So there was someone here from Turbo Keys that was showing how to properly glue a switch. There was lots of tables set up with a bunch of different keyboards from different eras and ages and feels, and they had lots and lots of different types of switches to test out. There was lots of different layouts and designs and colors and feel, and it's an amazing place to go to experience what mechanical keyboards are like. There was also people playing poker using Cherry MX switches rather than poker chips, so things like that. We also had a setup for Aimpad there, and had some swag to give away to some people. And so while I was there, I thought it would be interesting to set it up a kind of like a blind taste test between an Aimpad keyboard and a non-Aimpad keyboard to see if people could tell the difference between our technology and what it offers and another technology and what it offers, and to see if people could actually tell any difference. Like, does it really matter? And all my videos have been trying to convince you and explain to you in ways that our technology is better and feels better, and it's always been me. I've never had someone else come on and say, oh yeah, I've tried these both and this one's better and this one's not and this is why. So I wanted to see if I could test out people not being able to test or not being able to know which keyboard is which and just blindly feel which one is better. So I set up two keyboards. They're both in boxes similar to this, that there's a cutout area in this space where people could basically touch two keys without any other feel or interruption, and both keyboards were set up with the exact same keycaps and the same colors, and everything about them were identical to each other. So just one was labeled keyboard A, one was labeled keyboard B, and that is basically the only thing that people could tell between them, is one was A and one was B. And all I asked them to do was to sit down, and we had to set up with these keyboards side by side next to each other, set up to play the game Race the Sun. And all I wanted them to do was to try out one keyboard and get a feel for it, then try out the other keyboard, get a feel for it, and just tell me which one feels better. Which one allows you to control that chip better. And that's all they had to do, was just say yes or no, I like A better or I like B better. And it's just like the classic Pepsi versus Coke test. Like, you just test it and tell me which one you like better. Then I would also ask them, why, and I wanted to get some feedback on why they thought that was the case. So, interesting enough, I have the results here, and there was about 40 people, 50 people, somewhere around there at the Mechanical Keyboard Meetup, and 23 people took this blind taste test and filled out a survey with the response. And of those people, one person couldn't feel any difference at all. He just said, I don't know which one feels better. I don't have an opinion either way. Two people said that they prefer the one that had the Adomax Flaretech switches, which are another analog technology. And then 20 people said that they preferred the Aimpad one. So both keyboards were set up in their default configuration for a linear analog curve. There's nothing special about them. As best as I can make both keyboards be, this is how they were set up. And still 20 out of 23 people preferred the Aimpad one. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's not that big. Is that really significant or not? So what I'd like to do is to show you this website at medcalc.org, and kind of put this into a statistical analysis. Is this enough people's impressions to give some type of meaningful input on whether or not this is statistically significant? So when we look at the observed proportion, when we say that there's 20 out of 23 people, that is closely to about 87% of the people that recommended it, or that they preferred the Aimpad keyboard. The sample size was a total of 23 people, and then the null hypothesis value is 50%. Because basically, if the result of this test was that it was all completely due to chance, then ideally what you would expect is that half the people would prefer one and the other half would prefer the other, and that would mean that there really is no meaningful difference between them. Okay, so when we do this test and we get the result, what it says here is that there are 3.5 standard deviations of these results, of like how far out of skew and out of whack of normalcy it is. It's really, really far out of there, that this is probably pretty statistically significant. When we look at this value of p, any p-value of less than 0.05 in academic circles is traditionally seen as statistically significant. So when we have a p-value of 0.0004, that's pretty rare. Like, there's something going on here. And this last section of the observed proportion, basically meaning even in a worst case scenario, 66% of the people would probably prefer Aimpad, but in the best case scenario, 97% of the people would prefer an Aimpad keyboard. It's pretty telling that even with that small sample size of just 23 people, a lot of those people preferred it, and I can extrapolate that most people would prefer the analog Aimpad keyboard, statistically significant. So I asked the important question, like, so why? Why do you think this Aimpad keyboard is better? What is it about it that you like? So some of the others' responses were associated around feel. So some people thought that, like, maybe the switches are heavier, so it gives me some better control. And the other one person said, they feel heavier, it's easier to fine tune. So all of it was about some type of tactical feel of it felt like they had more control. A lot of people said that the reason why it was better controlled was because at the top of the press, it responded immediately. So they would say it could actually tell the actuation point, it starts sensing closer, there's less travel to the actuation, and movement happens faster. Keyboard A, which was the non-Aimpad one, didn't respond to light presses generally, feels like it takes half of the travel to start responding, which is true. It does take around half of that press in order for the non-Aimpad keyboard to start responding. Another main thing was that people thought that there was some type of effective precision, like it was reacting in certain ways where there was no jerkiness to compensate, which was the jerky one was for the A keyboard. More responsive, feels almost like an analog stick. The A keyboard seems more choppy, and I can make smaller adjustments. It responds to light constant press better and more precise control. So all of these were kind of the main factors of why people thought, and I think it's accurate. And I really find this type of feedback very insightful because this is what I thought, and they were kind of echoing back to me that, yeah, this is better for these different reasons. Now, the person that preferred keyboard A, there's two people. One of them didn't have a response at all. They didn't answer the question of why they thought it was better. The other person that did answer it said lower sense. So I'm assuming they preferred that there was lower sensitivity on this other keyboard, meaning that they liked it that it didn't respond immediately for some reason, and they liked it better to have that lag of delay, which is fine because with our solution, since we can sense the entire key press, if they want lower sensitivity intentionally, I can do that. It's not a problem. But using the other switch for people that want greater sensitivity or more sensitivity at the top, based off the design of that switch, it's not possible to do that. So I can meet the need of this person that does prefer lower sensitivity. Now, the question might come down to, so why do people have this impression? Is there a way that I can visually demonstrate why it feels better? And I think I came up with a way to do that. So I'd like to set up my system here just a little bit to kind of show a way that I think effectively demonstrates why keyboard B, the Aimpad keyboard, is better than keyboard A, the one with Adomax Flaretech switches. So here I've set up my Aimpad keyboard to effectively demonstrate why I think people are saying that it feels better than the other keyboard. The way I hope to demonstrate that is using this software called Precision Tester. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to use this software for your own purposes. But basically what it will do is it's going to basically draw on the screen wherever the x-axis and the y-axis happen to be at that point in time, so you can effectively draw with a joystick, more or less. So what we're going to do here is I've set up this keyboard where it has the special keycap that's combining the S key and the D key into one key, so that both the S and the D will be pressed at exactly the same height at the same time. And what I'd like to do is to effectively use this tool here that's going to press it precisely in the middle without me interacting with it, to give it a nice smooth key press at the exact same time, because it's difficult to push the A and the D key down exactly the same, and this will help me to do that. So what should theoretically happen is I'm going to use this dial, and it's going to move this button down. So right at this point is when it started to engage the keycap, so I'm going to push it down more, and you'll see that it's already starting to draw on the screen. and it's drawing down at a direct 45-degree angle, because what's happening is the D key is responsible for moving it to the right, the S key is responsible for moving it straight down. So if they're moving both at the exact same time, kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch would draw, if you're twisting them at the exact same rate, it's going to make a 45-degree angle perfectly nice and down. If I bring it back up, it's going to keep drawing up to the middle when I let go of both of them. So it's a nice, precise arrangement there. If I take this keycap off and stick it on the two keys here, I'm going to clear this out so it's not so messy again, and move this over, put it precisely in the middle, and start pushing it down. You'll see it responded already, and it goes all the way down to that corner. So you can see it's a nice, precise movement, and it's because the way that we're sensing this key position of the cherry switch is very, very precise, and it responds right at the very top as soon as you press it, and it responds at the same rate of an adjacent key if they're both pushed at the same time. So the level of control is always consistent and always precise, and it always responds at the very top of the key press. So those are two extremely important elements, and I think this software effectively demonstrates that. So what I'd like to do is swap out this keyboard. I have to make some changes so that the software will start sensing the new keyboard, and I'll go ahead and do that now. Here we have a keyboard that uses the Adomax Flaretech switches. So this is the keyboard A that people were using, and basically what I'm going to do is take this same keycap and place it on the S and the D key here, so we can press both of them at the exact same time. I'm going to clear out this drawing so far so we can get a nice representation of what's going on when you press the key. So I'm going to drop it down here, make sure it's placed right in the center of the keycap there. So again, this is the point where it's engaging the top of the keycap. It should start ideally right at the top of the key press. So I'm going to start rotating this, and we haven't gotten a response yet. So I'm going to do it some more. Still nothing. Some more. Still nothing. Okay, there. So we started getting some response. Now, according to the spec sheet from Adomax, it looks like it starts to respond at 1.5 millimeters rather than at the very top of the press. And so that's why I had to push it down a significant amount. And I think that's why people in the survey responded that it doesn't respond, it doesn't feel like it responds to the top of the press, because it doesn't respond to the top of the press. So now, to address the precision issue that people were talking about, if I push it down some more, you'd expect it to go at a 45-degree angle, which it starts to look sort of 45. But then something weird happens. It looks like it's actually going back up again instead of going down. Now, this is the linear configuration for this keyboard. In the software, you can set it to be a linear curve. So it should be a nice straight line between both of these keys. If they're both being pressed at the same time and they're giving both a linear response, it should be right at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to go down some more with this press, and it is a straight downward motion. The only way that would happen is that there's something funky going on the D key, that it has no response at this time, but the S key does have some response. So there's no change in this D key in this range. Then I'm going to push it down some more, and now it looks like the S and the D key have kind of resynchronized again and have starting to respond at the same time until we bottom out, and now we're getting only response from the D key at this point, and the S key is getting no response. So that is not a linear line. You would expect it to be a straight line if these were responding at exactly the same rate, and they're not. And that's the effect that people were trying to explain when they said that the other one felt more precise, because it correlated directly as they pressed the key is exactly how the vehicle or the ship would churn based off of how you push it down. With this type of response, this means that you could be pushing it down, and while you're pushing it down, nothing would happen. Even though you're pushing it down more, it's still not going to churn, and then until it starts to re-engage the sensing method, whatever is going on with that switch, is why they're saying you don't have the level of precision or the level of control that the Aimpad keyboard provides. And I think this effectively demonstrates that unless you have a precise way of consistently measuring this key, you're not going to have a precise level of control over the game that you're playing. So speaking of games, I'd like to play a game called SUPERHOT. It's basically a game that I think effectively demonstrates analog control, and let's jump into that, and I'll show you why I think it is. So here is SUPERHOT. Now, it's a very interesting game, and I'm going to go ahead and start it here to give you an idea of what the game is all about. This is at the very, very beginning of the game, and essentially you're thrown into the middle of this kind of abstract-looking first-person shooter game, and right off the bat, it says that you can move around with the mouse to aim and use WASD to move. So what happens is, on the screen, you'll notice that says time moves only when you move. So basically, those guys are kind of slowly coming towards me, but they won't actually move fast towards me unless I'm moving. So if I'm moving really slow, they're going to move slow. If I'm moving really fast, they're going to move fast. So there's a direct correlation to my movement and where their bullets are traveling and what's happening on the screen. Not only am I controlling myself smoothly, but I'm also controlling time smoothly. It's a really interesting concept and a really smooth thing that's going on. Now, if I switch to keyboard mode, I don't have quite the same thing. I have to like tap and move and readjust my my movement this way. So I can keep on dodging stuff, but it's not like an intuitive control like I feel as well as I do in analog mode, that I'm smoothly moving not myself only, but also time. It's really hard to convey, but the experience just feels fantastic. So I can go ahead and take out these guys pretty effortlessly, and it's a really, really fun experience. I'll go ahead and maybe play through one more level just to give you an idea of what it's like. So it wants me to grab the gun, so I'll go ahead and grab the gun. And now I'm going to take out this guy, take out this guy. Oh, but I got him, and that was it. It was, oh, maybe not. Okay, and, oh, gotcha. So, that is the whole concept of SUPERHOT. I think you kind of get the idea of what it's about and how analog movement in this game in particular is pretty phenomenal. Highly, highly recommend playing SUPERHOT with an analog keyboard. I think they're actually going to have an update to this game or some expansion or something that I'm pretty excited for, so check it out. Alright, so there was SUPERHOT being played with an Aimpad analog keyboard. I think it effectively demonstrates how much control you have not only over your body, but also over time based off of how far down you push those keys. And I think it's an effective game to play using an Aimpad analog keyboard. I will be heading off to Computex in a couple of weeks to give some more demonstrations and to get some more feedback from people that see the Cooler Master booth, and I think it'll be an exciting time. I hope that you can, if you're in the area of Taipei, that you can stop by and swing by the Cooler Master booth to take a look. Otherwise, I am grateful for you to watch this video, and if you'd like to see more of this crazy analog keyboard stuff, go ahead and subscribe. Would like to have you. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching.